علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وهدى اللهم امين. جزاكم الله خير على حضوركم واستماعكم on this day 2 of our lectures for the Thanksgiving weekend here in Masjid Al-Taymiyyah. Inshallah ta'ala, with us tonight is Sheikh Yusuf Asusi, who started a series of lectures beginning from last night, where his topic was Muslims, Muslimas, and whataboutisms. And tonight, inshallah ta'ala, he will be delivering his second lecture, which is going to be focusing on empowering Muslim women or Muslim sisters. So inshallah ta'ala, without any further talk, I'm going to let the Shaykh carry on from here on. Inshallah ta'ala, فليتفضل مشكورا مأجورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على من بعث رحمة للعالمين إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وأما بعد Inshallah ta'ala, we will engage on another topic that has to do with the theme وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that the male is not like the female, right? And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant me strength in my speech and that I deliver this topic with wisdom, with diligence, and with care, as I know it's a very sensitive topic, but nonetheless, it is still a topic that has to be addressed. It is still a topic that has to be brought up. Although I feel like I'm reiterating something that I've said before, and although I'm being repetitive, I think it's important because it's not heard enough and it's not discussed enough. Look, little homie, if you're sitting by someone and you're going to be talking, real talk, I don't appreciate that. I find like that's really disrespectful. Like that really bothers me. I know you're not used to being talked like that, but that's not cool, man. Like, I'd rather be with my family back home, right? You know? Or you feel me? So, going back to what I was talking about is the topic at hand, right? This concept, this idea of, what I wanted to reiterate is political correctness is all about worrying about your feelings. Political correctness literally is all about worrying about people's feelings, okay? Sometimes in life, your feelings are going to get hurt. But you have to look at this person who's hurting your feelings through two lenses. Is this person hurting your feelings because they have a problem with you? They have beef with you? They have an issue with you? Or is it that they said something and in the process of saying that, they hurt your feelings? Does that make sense? In other words, if you feel when you're listening to something or something is being said to you or told to you, really ask yourself, is this person hurting my feelings because they want to hurt my feelings? Or are my feelings being hurt in the process? But hurting my feelings is not necessarily the gharad, or it's not the objective. Does that make sense? So in other words, today, in our day, not today, right now, you might hear a lot of things throughout your lifetime that are going to hurt your feelings. Your feelings are going to get hurt. But put into consideration, that person is not intended to hurt your feelings, but the only way they can get to the truth is via hurting your feelings. So hurting your feelings is not the objective per se. Okay? I just want to get that across for whatever it's worth, and I hope I didn't cause any confusion by trying to get that point across. Now, when we're talking about women empowerment, see, there's a very big game being played out there, and this is not that I am going to be conspiratorial here. No. What I'm getting at, the words that you see out there today that are being passed on from every newspaper to every news outlet, they come off seemingly harmless. Really, this is important. Yani, please give me your undivided attention. These concepts and terms, they come off the way they appear, they are seemingly harmless. Meaning when you look at them, they're not confrontational, they don't oppose anything, they come off as good terms, right? So the word women empowerment, I mean, you have to be crazy not to empower women today, right? At least the surface of it, Who doesn't want to empower women? Why? Because the word empower independently is a good word. No different than the word equality. Do you know why a lot of women fall victim to the gender equality feminist movement? Because the word equality carries positive vibes, it has positive connotations. It's not a confrontational term. The same goes with other words such as love, acceptance, tolerance, right? Cohesion, and so on and so forth. All of these words that you constantly hear, these talking points that you hear on the news, that you hear on podcasts, they carry positive vibes. The problem is with us young, impressionable Muslims, when we hear these words, we don't bother to verify or to check the veracity of what these words entail and imply. So we take them in without realizing until it's a little bit too late, right? You take the word, you're like, oh, this is a good word. Islam is the last religion, so these two must be compatible. Women empowerment, Islam gives Muslim women rights, so Islam must adopt feminism and gender equality and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is people, they take these concepts in without giving them any thought, without critically thinking about them. I'm going to put a quick bracket. If there's something that I urge all of you to do, young or old, small, big, tall, try to pride yourself on critically thinking. Try to be a person who critically thinks and analyzes things. Don't be like a mockingbird. You hear it, it sounds good, and then you start repeating it. Try to be a critical thinker, especially in the world today, because our society, literally, the bulk of it is based on deceiving people. And the only way a lot of these things can be passed and a lot of these things can keep going is by deceiving people, duping people, and taking advantage of people who cannot critically think. Your job, especially as a parent, is to try to see through the crevices and to try to see through the cracks so your kids are not being taken advantage of. That's number one. Point number two is that our understanding is twofold, right? When you think of the word empowerment, what immediately comes to mind? For me, at least, when the word empower comes to mind for women, the one thing that comes to my mind is gathering, gaining, adding additions, more school, more social status, a better income, a bigger house, right? Access to more spaces and access to more places. In other words, when you think of empowering women, it's always about gathering and acquiring more of something. Am I wrong, or is this correct? Is this what comes to your mind too? Anybody shares a different opinion, let me know. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of women empowerment? Is it something different than what I said? It's basically about giving more, right? Let me ask you this. When you think of women empowerment, does opting out of something, does that come to mind? Refraining and staying away and opting out and choosing not to get involved in that women empowerment, whatever that concept is. Does that fall under women empowerment? What I'm getting at here is that we as Muslims, right, sometimes women can be empowered by gaining, acquiring, and gathering something, but they can also be empowered by opting out of something. This here, the opting out, is unfortunately not part of the Muslim contemporary discourse in America today. And this is why I believe many of us, unknowingly and not voluntarily, we are added to the destruction of some of our women folk. Because the contemporary discourse, all of it revolves around getting more education, getting a better job, getting a better house, getting a nicer car, being independent from your husband. You don't have to worry about him, and the list goes on and on. But who's teaching our Muslim women folk today that an integral part, Islamically speaking, of women empowerment is to say, Ma'ad Allah, innahu rabbi ahsana mathwaya. When are we going to teach our women that part of being empowered in the face of the tides is for you to swim against the tides? All of the women are swimming that way. Your job as an empowered Muslim woman is for you to swim the opposite direction. But again, are our women being taught this? They are not being taught this. Because again, when you think of empowerment, it's getting something, getting more of something, acquiring more, moving up. But sometimes it's taking a step back and saying, you know what? No, I don't want to have any part of this. This is the women empowerment that I want to not introduce you all to, but I want you to familiarize yourselves with this kind of women empowerment. Now, what is very scary is this, is that you're going to have people in this world who are going to come off as people who really, really care about you or care about your well-being, whether it's women or men alike, only to find out later that they did not care about you, they've exploited you, they've taken advantage of you, and now who loses at the end? It's you. And this, by the way, the whispers of shaitan were from the time of Adam. They are currently present with us today, and they will continue until Qiyam as-Sa'ah. The whispers of shaitan, the sira' bayn al-haq wal-batil, the fight between truth and falsehood, will continue until Judgment Day. A-sira' is not going to stop. And that's why I just want to quickly, even though it's not really a part of our discussion, but I just want you all to recount the story of Adam alayhi salam when shaitan came to him. Did he not tell him, قال ما نهاكما ربكما عن هذه الشجرة إلا أن تكونا ملكين أو تكونا من الخالدين. He said, shaitan came to Adam and his wife Hawa, and he said, your Lord only forbade you from eating from this tree because both of you are angels, or because you guys will be eternally here. وَقَاسَمَهُمَا إِنِّي لَكُمَا لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. And he swore to them that I'm looking out for your best interest. I want good for you. How many times we have people who come along like that? They masquerade as looking out for our best interest, only to find out later they don't care about us. وَقَاسَمَهُمَا. He swore that he's looking out for their best interest. What does Allah say immediately after that? فَدَلَّاهُمَا بِغُرُورٍ. He deceived them. If you were to ask me today what's happening with many Muslim women, a growing number of Muslim women today, they're being duped and they're being deceived. And yes, a growing number of Muslim women are completely buying it. هذا الذي أدين الله سبحانه وتعالى به. This could be my theory. You can think I'm cuckoo, you can think I'm crazy. That's fine. My experience online and what I see day in and day out is that many of our women are being taken advantage of. I'll give you a few examples. When you look at a lot of the clothing and marketing companies out there, right? Do you really think they care about the well-being of Muslim women? But a sister gets all of a sudden jubilee and she gets excited and uppity up when she finds some company, quote unquote, selling her modest clothing, right? And when you look Islamically, it's not modest. It's not modest at all. So what they do is under certain labels, right, that they call inclusion and celebrate diversity, they'll put a woman out there and they're like, this is, you can wear this at home, but this is not for public. This is not for you to run around in public in, right? So what they'll do is then when you come as a brother, there's nothing in it for you. When you advise the sister and you tell her, fear Allah, this is not appropriate, is there anything in it for you? Is there anything in it for you? Are you getting anything when you advise her about the way she's dressed? Is there anything in it for you? Ajibu. What do you get out of it? What do you get out of it? Do you get anything out of it? Why do you advise her? Because you're worried about her akhirah, right? Right? Are these companies, these multi-million, billion-dollar companies, are they worried about the well-being of our women? These think tanks, these organizations, right? These corporations, the movers and shakers, the powers that be. This is what Muslim women have to come to terms with, is that your brother is not your enemy. Your father is not your enemy. Your sheikh at the local masjid is not your enemy. But what these powers have done is they flipped everything around. What they've done is this, and this is the only way they are able to get free access to the average Muslim woman, because they've worked on other cultures, they've worked on other faiths. The one body, the one community that's missing now is the Muslim woman. So what they've done is this. They've turned around, and that's why for many, not many, for some Muslim women, their number one enemy in the house is their father. Their second enemy is their husband. Do you know why? Because a woman, when she is not married, do you know who her guardian is? Who's her guardian? Her father. A woman, so long as she's alive, she has a guardian. When she's not married, her guardian is her father. When she moves out of her parents' house and she gets married, her new guardian is her husband. What these companies have done is they've literally pitted the father against the daughter and the husband against the wife to describe them as being possessive, as being controlling, as being abusive, as dabbling too much into their business, and so on and so forth. Let me stop. Do I believe there are not Muslim abusive men out there? No. Do I condone Muslim abusive men out there? No. Am I okay with men abusing their wives? No. But is it the man's responsibility in Islam to command his wife to dress properly, to tell her to commit her prayers, to tell her to shut off the TV if she's watching something inappropriate? Yes, that's his job. Under this model, that's being possessive, that's being controlling, and that's being a dictator. Under Islam, that's your job. Do you know why it's your job? Because on Judgment Day, Allah is going to ask you about her. That's why. Do we not read in the Quran, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِسْمَاعِيلَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صَادِقَ الْوَعْدِ وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا أَفِيدُونِي أَكْمِلُوا. Louder. I can't hear you. بالعربي the Quran. وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ. Subhanallah, out of everything that Allah mentions about Ismail alayhi salam, the one thing that's worth mentioning about Ismail is that he used to command his wife to pray. He used to tell her to pray. I'm not going to get into how and honey and with wisdom and love. I'm not talking about that. The fact is in the Quran, there's a constant theme of it's the man commanding the wife. There's no verse, there's no prophetic tradition telling the woman to command the husband. The man commands and the woman does what? The woman reminds the husband. Do you know why? She's not asked about him on Judgment Day. We are asked about them on Judgment Day. Y'all see how things work? And by the way, these truth claims are in the Quran. Don't be mad at me. Seriously, look, I'm not your enemy. I'm just telling you, Allah said in the Quran, and the Prophet Muhammad said in the prophetic tradition. So going back, not to drift away, the only way they can have access, manipulate, and take advantage of young, impressionable Muslims is by getting the father out of the way and describing him and characterizing him as this abusive, controlling father who needs to get out of his daughter's business, or the father, or now the husband. And guess what? Do you know what's happening? Some fathers and some husbands unfortunately bought into it. Oh, she does her thing, alhamdulillah, I trust her. MashaAllah alayk. MashaAllah alayk. You trust her, yeah, do your thing, mashallah, right? Yeah, do your thing, that's not Islamic. Yeah, don't wake up for Fajr, don't pray, leave however you want, do your thing, mashallah, I'm here to support you. No, that's not how Islam works. All that was an intro. Okay? I want to spend, inshallah ta'ala, a few moments of some time here talking about, and by the way, keep this in mind. If there's something that you disagree with, wallahi, I welcome criticism. If there's something that you disagree with, instead of you going out, man, what was you talking about? What was it? Bro, ask me. I'll try to answer your question, right? You don't have to leave out of here with a grudge on your shoulder. Ask me, right? Maybe I can clarify it for you. Okay, I want to give you all a few examples of women empowerment, the Islamic, godly, upright, wholesome version of women empowerment. Okay? When I think of women empowerment and I think of women specifically, the first woman that comes to mind is Hajar radiallahu anha. Hajar, the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is the first woman who comes to mind. The reason for that is obvious. Hajar, may Allah be pleased with her, goes with her husband to a barren desert, right? She finds herself in the middle of the Swat Valley, barren desert, no communities, no people, no traffic, no cars, nothing but sand, air, and the skies. That's the only thing there, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he decides to leave his wife and his only son at that time, Ismail alayhi salam, as Ibrahim turns to walk away and leave his family there, she asks him a question. She says, Ya Ibrahim, Allahu amarak? Oh Ibrahim, did your Lord command you to leave us here in the desert? قال نعم. He says to her, yes, my Lord commanded me to leave you here in the desert. Do you know what she says? إِذَنْ لَا يُضَيِّعُنَا. Allahu Akbar. Look at the conviction. Look at the power. Look at the confidence. Look at her trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only an empowered woman can do what Hajar radiallahu anha did. She looks at her husband and she said, your Lord is commanding you. I can't. That Somali tea, that stuff is too strong. I don't know if it's tea with sugar or sugar with tea. Y'all trying to kill me here. Get them. Some of the haters probably made it, right? Give it to the sheikh. What's it?
You hear a poison?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That was good, yeah. I mean, anyway, okay, go back to. But Hajar radiallahu anha, it oftentimes this is overlooked. The courage, the conviction. How can a woman, seriously think about it. Sometimes as a husband, you leave your wife at the mall for an hour just to grab something. You come back. She's not answering her phone, right? She doesn't pick up, and you're dying, worried about where she is. This woman, Hajar radiallahu anha, is in the middle of the desert by herself, right? And the one thing, now notice how she doesn't even ask Ibrahim. Ibrahim, first, today, convince me, right? Why men can do this, women can't do that? Why can y'all get extra wives and we can't? How come y'all get Hur al-Ain and Jannah? I mean, all these things that women in the past never asked, by the way, right? So this is coming from somewhere else, right? A lot of these questions are coming from an outside source. There's something external happening and they're trying to bring it in. Yeah, you know what? Why is it that men can do A, B, C, X, Y, Z? I'm not saying we should not ask questions, but where are your questions coming from? What's the source? You never asked those questions before. Why suddenly now are you asking these questions, right? But Hajar doesn't ask Ibrahim, why would your Lord decide to leave me and my child here alone in a barren desert? She doesn't even bother asking him. The minute she finds out that it's from Allah, does she move forward? Does she ask a follow-up question? La. She's content. And this is what's missing today. Like a sister says, convince me I have to work. No, my job is not to convince you. You got it all messed up. My job is to convey to you that you have to wear it and it's mandatory. I don't have to convince nobody. What do you mean convince me, right? Like, I don't get, why do you think it's my job to convince you? So anyways, Hajar radiallahu anha was an empowered woman. And the only way she was able to stay with her son alone in the barren desert is because she was an empowered woman. Radiallahu anha. Empowered woman number 2 is Asiya bint Muzahim, Zawjat Fir'aun. Asiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about 2 women who were full. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the hadith, he says, لم يكتمل من النساء إلا مريم بنت عمران وآسيا بنت مزاحم زوجة فرعون. These are 2 women the Prophet ﷺ talks about and praises them. Asya and Maryam radiallahu anhum. Okay? She was tortured when Fir'aun found out that she's not worshiping him and he's not her deity or her God. He decides, يَفْعَلُ فِيهَا الْأَفَائِلِ. He tortures her. She's being punished. And the only thing she's saying is La ilaha illallah. And she believes in the message of Fir'aun. Meaning that it takes a confident, empowered woman to detach herself from the husband she really loves when she knows that he's not on the right path. When a woman who loves her husband, but she knows her husband is not on the right path, it takes a lot for her to go in the other direction, not following in the footsteps of her husband. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He leaves a mathal I believe it's in Surah Al-Tahrim, the last page, right? وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين. All right, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to mention the story of Maryam radiallahu anha as well. Moving to another empowered woman, and these are just quick glimpses so you can all get a different picture. Khadija radiallahu anha, we all know Khadija. She's always described online as the Forbes 500 CEO business owner, and mashallah, and a lot of sisters, they appeal to that, right? Well, look at what Khadija did. I mean, if we were to honestly examine this claim, Khadija radiallahu anha, what did she do with her money? Did she use it to destroy Islam and get the finer things of life, or did she use it to spread Islam? What did she do? What did she do with her money? Did she use her money to just walk out on the Prophet ﷺ because she can do it on her own? The Prophet ﷺ, when he was married to Khadija, yes, she had money, but she was an honorable woman. And I think what's missing, what no one is talking about when we talk about these things, is that Khadija radiallahu anha, these women in general, were very, very comfortable in their femininity. See, this is what no one is talking about. I'm going to remain calm. This is what no one is talking about. The women that oftentimes are appealed to by some of our contemporary sisters today, may Allah guide them and guide us, Allahumma ameen. They forget to mention that those women they're appealing to were very, very comfortable with their femininity. Being women, being girly-like, being modest, being obedient to your husband, obeying your husband. They were very comfortable with all these concepts. They weren't leaving the house being dazzled and turning eyes. No, stop with all that. She's a CEO of 500. Stop with all that. They didn't have a problem with having kids. They didn't have a problem with nurturing kids. They didn't have a problem with motherhood. They didn't have a problem with cooking, right? They didn't have a problem with none of that. But you're adamant that, no, I'm following in the footsteps of Khadija. Why is it that we look at that, but we overlook everything else that they were comfortable with? So Khadija radiallahu anha was an empowered woman in the sense that she spent her wealth to promote Islam, not to question and destroy the concepts of Islam. And I think that's where the distinction has to be made. Another point that I want to bring up, Atiyya Nusayba bint Ka'b. Okay? Now this woman, radiallahu anha, do you know what she says? She was an amazing sahabiya, radiallahu anha. She says, غَزَوْتُ مَعَ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ سَبْعَ غَزَوَاتٍ. She says, I went with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on 7 expeditions, 7 battles. What did she do though? Did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam place her here with her armor and her sheath, and she's ready to go toe to toe with the kuffar? That's not what she was doing. Some of this stuff is delusional that you read. Wallahi. Do you know, here's what she says. She says, غزوت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم 7 غزوات فكنت أخلفهم في متاعهم وكنت أطبخ لهم الطعام وكنت أداوي الجرحى والمريض. 4 things she used to do. She didn't go out. The Prophet ﷺ never went out to battle with women, and he staged them the same way the Sahaba were staged. The women, all of them, when they went out with the Prophet ﷺ, they went out not as female foot soldiers. This is in the Khayat. She says, I used to go with the Prophet during these expeditions. The first thing she says is, I used to pay close attention on their garments and on their mata', on their possessions, right? The second thing is, y'all ain't gonna like this. She said, I used to cook food for them. I used to what? I used to cook food for them, right? Yeah, well, no, I know, yeah, see, when a boy's on the fitrah and hears a woman cooking food, his fitrah is telling him that's not bad. But that's becoming like the focal point today, women getting married, I don't have to cook for you, right? Anyways, she says, I used to cook food for them, and I used to take care of the jarha. I used to take care of the wounded, And I used to heal the sick. Heal meaning she used to tend to their wounds, which is kind of one and the same thing. So this is what women used to do. Which drags me to the next question. Is jihad incumbent upon women? No, jihad is not incumbent upon women. And by the way, I don't want to sound cringy here, right? Because you'll see a lot of these memes online. They have all these things about what jihad is. Oh, jihad is about struggling this, struggling that, struggling this, right? I mean, okay, but I mean, to be honest, jihad is also fighting in battle. It's not killing indiscriminately or killing innocent people, but jihad is fighting in battle. Why are we ashamed of that? Y'all call it you guys call it patriotism. We call it jihad. What's the big deal? I mean, what's next? Oh, walking on the beach on a hot sunny day without my what is that called? Lotion? Yeah. What's next? My jihad is, you know what my jihad online is? Reading cringy stuff. That's my jihad. It's coming across cringy stuff like this and still being online. That's my jihad. Right? I mean, really, what's next? Oh, walking on the beach without my sunglasses. That's my jihad. Are you kidding a life? Are you serious? I mean, no, we sound like little 5-year-olds. And people, they share this stuff. People seem to love it. It's like the cringiest stuff that really makes rounds out there. Really, I don't know why. Right? Okay, so not to get too carried away. Anyways, she said she used to do all of that. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, I believe it was Aisha, she said, Ya Rasulullah, inna nara anna al-jihad afdal al-a'mal. O Messenger of Allah, we see that jihad, fighting in battle, is the best of deeds, right? فَهَلْ لِلنِّسَاءِ jihad? Can women fight in battle in jihad? The Prophet ﷺ says, Na'am. He says, yes. لَكُنَّ jihad لَا قِتَالَ فِيهِ حَجٌّ مَبْرُورٌ. Why, I don't get it. Why is it that these women are looking for trouble? I mean, the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يتمنى أحدكم لقاء العدو ولكنكم إذا لقيتموهم فاثبتوا واصبروا. I mean, the Prophet is telling the men, do not desire to meet your enemy on the front lines. But if you meet them, be firm and make much remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's this? I don't get it. Is it because women are joining the army now that we also have to show the typical Katie, Jennifer, Alicia that, hey, we too have women foot soldiers? What is it? Why is it that every time the kuffar do something, we have to show them a Muslim version of it? Why can't we just say, oh, yeah, no, there's no such thing in Islam? Next question, please. Why can't we be that people? Why? Why do we always have to Islamify everything? I told you I'm going to keep my call. Inshallah, I'll try to keep my promise, right? Anyways, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, yes, women have jihad. The way jihad for women is what? Is for them to go to Hajj. No fighting and no killing. Let me open up a quick bracket. Some people say that some of the Sahabiyat, they killed some of the mushrikeen. Hakim, I believe it was, she killed some of the mushrikeen. Listen, al-darura is darura. When your wife sees you and you're getting beat up, you're getting stomped, and you're getting jumped, and she jumps out of the car, it's as if I see some women, Ya Rabb, I wish that happens to my husband. That wasn't a good joke, Clay. What I'm getting at here, what a loving wife, what is she going to do? Is she going to look and say, oh, I'm a feminine woman, I'm not going to help him. A loving wife, what's your natural instinct? What is she going to do? She's going to get out of the car, and she's going to get in there, and she's going to try to defend her husband to the best of her ability. That's natural. But the problem with us Muslims is we take these exceptions and we turn these exceptions and we morph them into the rule. The rule is that women do not engage in jihad in battle. And what any Sahabiya did, she did it out of dire necessity. The same way, if you're getting jumped in front of Walmart, if you're getting jumped at the store, at the park, and your wife is in the car and she sees you, she rushes to your hurry. That's it. And we don't have to be the people. We always have to prove to others how we too got something like that in Islam. No, there is no such thing in Islam. And move on. Why is it that that's not an option for us? Right? Okay. La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. Habiba radiallahu anha. Habiba was married to Abdullah ibn Jahsh. Okay? And they both migrated to Al-Habasha. But when Abdullah ibn Jahsh, Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh, when he got there, he left Islam and became a Christian, according to some narrations. Habiba was with him for quite some time, but she does not decide to follow in the footsteps of her husband. Right? Oh, you're going to leave Islam? No. In a woman, women are emotional. That's not an insult. Spare me, I don't entertain nonsense. When we say women are emotional, that is a beautiful quality. Okay? When we say women are emotional, that's a beautiful quality, right? But Habiba, although she's in love with her husband, she's been with her husband for quite a while, when she sees him in the wrong, she does not decide to follow in his footsteps. Are there people who follow others in their footsteps when they're in the wrong? Yes. Men and women alike. Men and women alike. But Habiba decides to stay in Islam and not to follow in the steps of her husband. Another person that I would like to draw your attention to, inshallah. All of you are familiar with Sulaym. Sulaym was the mother of Anas ibn Malik, right? Sulaym was married to a man. She was married to him for quite a while. Before Islam, she was married to a man by the name of Malik ibn al-Nadr. Malik ibn al-Nadr. When Sulaym accepted Islam, her husband was out and about. He wasn't local. He comes home one day. He sees his wife, and he sees that she's doing something different. She's not the woman that he's used to. She's new. He's in front of someone new right now. He asks her, he says, Asabawti? Asabawti meaning, did you leave your religion? She says, no, walakinnani aslamt. No, I did not do sabu, if you want to call it, but I became a Muslim. And he got so infuriated by that he ended up leaving her, and then he went up north to Sham. It's until a matter of time that as we would call him today, an alpha male, Abu Talha radiallahu anhu, okay, comes and approaches Sulaym in marriage. But Sulaym is not having it. Sulaym is not having it. Sulaym tells him, Ya Aba Talha, innaka rajulun la yuraddu mithluk, walakinnaka mushrik. Sulaym, the empowered Sahabiya radiallahu anha, she says, no sane person will turn a man like you down. However, Aba Talha, you're not a believer. Do you know what we have today? We have some Muslim women fighting their fathers, brothers, sheikhs, imams, clerics, everybody, so she can marry the John in her class. So she can marry the Jeff down the hall from her. Not Muslim. And some of them go to down. This ain't funny. And she'll even tell him, just tell my parents you became a Muslim. It's not a big deal, right? Just tell my parents you've accepted Islam, right? And you're telling me you're empowered? That's empowerment? That's kufr and fisq. That ain't empowerment. What are you smoking? That's not empowerment. Some of them will fight tooth and nail, their own flesh and blood, so she can marry a non-Muslim. Anyways, back to Sulaym radiallahu anha. She says, however, if you do want to marry me, and Abu Talha was a noble man, right? She says, if you do want to marry me, if you accept Islam, I will accept that as my dowry. Right? Later on, he accepted Islam, and that was the dowry. His Islam was the dowry for her. Right? But it takes an empowered woman not to drool over anyone and everyone. It takes an empowered woman to stand in her ranks and say, I'm opting out. I don't want to have nothing to do with this. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. Yusuf alayhi salam, he says, oh Allah, the prison is more beloved to me than me committing fahisha with them. So what I'm trying to draw all of our attention to here, brothers and sisters, right, is that women empowerment, if we're constantly talking about worldly women empowerment, but we're not discussing religious empowerment, we're not teaching our women to be God-fearing, loving mothers, loving daughters, loving mothers, right, who are proud of their religion. They're not questioning their religion, questioning in the sense of opposition, objections, that you're okay with it. Although it's not cool and it's not the dominant narrative, you're okay with it because Allah allowed a man to marry more than one wife. That you maybe could not handle it, but you do not come out and you start mocking Islam and you say, and so there's something special about me. He gets married, this whole idea, men, they just want to marry women and they just want to get on and fulfill their desire. That's something that Allah legislated. And that's why a nasiha to some of our sisters is y'all really have to watch your mouths on social media. Some of you talk too much. Yes, some of you talk way too much. What I mean too much is you guys commit kufr online when you start talking about the religion without any knowledge. And you are writing stuff that shaitan would not even dare say. And some are applauding you on, go sister, go what? You're flying off of a cliff. And other sisters are clapping next to you and championing you. A'udhu billah. Really, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to be the one to break it to you. I'm not trying to be this way, but it gets a little bit too far. This is not about degrading women. It's not about disrespecting women. It's not about not honoring them. No, to the contrary. Right? So I think a question for ourselves, honestly, let's be honest with ourselves, and I'm sure we're going to get a rampage of a barrage of questions, which I do welcome, by the way. I have no problem with it. Let's ask ourselves, this whole concept of women empowerment, the way we've been going about it for the past decade or two. Billahi alaykum, honestly, an honest question for all of you. Has it honestly made women better women? Are wives better wives? Are daughters better daughters? Billahi alaykum, you don't have to answer me. I'm just asking you. Are women more comfortable in their femininity? Are they more comfortable with the fawalaq, with the different benchmarkers, the biological benchmarkers between women in Islam, right? And that's why, it brings me to my next point here. There was a girl by the name of, listen for you. There was a girl by the name of Na'im al-Bazzaz. Anybody hear of who Na'im al-Bazzaz? Na'im al-Bazzaz was a Muslim woman who started off, and please, dear sister, give me your ears just for attentively, please. Na'im al-Bazzaz, you can look her up. She's a woman, a girl who started off fighting for women's rights. It was very good at the very beginning, everything was fine. She starts off gradually but surely, she gets mixed up and hooked up with the wrong people and with the wrong crowd who are constantly inundating her with objections of Islam, with shubuhat of Islam, with misconceptions about Islam. See, slowly her sister does an hour podcast. Na'im al-Bazzaz, by the way, not to give it away, she ended up committing suicide because of feminism. I'm not done with the story. Her sister gives an hour-long podcast explaining how her sister went from a typical Muslim sister fighting for the rights of women to gradually fighting with her parents and having problems with her siblings and her parents, to later on she starts asking things about the Prophet ﷺ. Why did he do this? How come he got to marry these women? That's not equal to men. And so she never had that problem though. It's when you get surrounded with ill people and evil people, and she thought she could do it. The problem is, slowly but surely, she found that she could not be loyal to two isms out there. You cannot be loyal to two opposites. Allah says, وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not place two hearts in your body. It can be two hearts, but it can also be two loyalties. This is how feminism starts off. This is how it starts off. The sister, okay, we want nothing but good for them, right? There's nothing special about my daughters. I want my daughter to hear this when she grows older as well. Ain't nothing special about me, my daughters, my wife, or family, right? This is how feminism starts off. The sister, she has Islam on this side, and then she has feminism on this side. As the car is driving and it's going slow, she can hold both. She can hold both. As the car starts to speed up, she has a hard time hanging on to both. In other words, when she gets really deep in this nonsense, and she starts questioning Prophet Muhammad, and she starts questioning ta'addud, she starts questioning Allah. Why do men have to do this? Why does a woman have to obey her husband? Well, how come the woman doesn't obey the husband? And I mean, the list goes on. It's not questions, it's objections. She starts off, and this is how it starts. She goes. As she starts to get deeper in this stench, the divide starts to happen. It starts to happen, right? She gets to a point where she can no longer hold on to both of them, and remain loyal to both of them. She realizes slowly but surely that I cannot hang on to both. What does she do? She ends up leaving one or the two. And because feminism is the dominant narrative today, a growing number of Muslim women end up holding on to feminism, and that becomes their benchmarker of what should be accepted and what should not be accepted. Okay? I would even go a step further. They hang on so much, but they hang on, and the spread gets so wide that she cannot hang on anymore and ends up literally losing one of her limbs because of how strong it is and how intensive a feeling it is. Look, you can think I'm crazy, but Naeem al-Bassas started off again as a young, average Muslimah, fighting for women's rights. She got so deep, the anxiety was so strong, she could not be loyal to both. And it eats you alive to know that feminism is supposed to be this good, amazing thing to protect and give women their rights. And Islam is supposed to be Allah's last religion on earth. But you realize that you cannot harmonize between the two. That's going to cause a great deal of anxiety. And that's why I'm telling you, young sisters, y'all have no idea what you're playing with. Wallahi, you have no idea what many of you are playing with. And this is a message for the young sisters. Y'all have no idea what you're getting into. And that's why I'm not implicit about feminism. I'm not implicit at all. For me, I find it to be this ferocious bear that's attacking us, and I'm trying to fight with whatever I can. Some other public figures are doing like this to the bear. It's okay, just be nice, tap him on the back, I'm sure he'll go away. Nah, hell no. This is not how, no, I gotta do whatever I can to get this bear to move away. Some Muslim du'at are portraying feminism like it's this innocent rabbit. La ilaha illallah. How many women do we have? And you know what? Feminism will either lead women to either suicide or apostasy. And it's becoming a growing number now where Muslims are no longer satisfied with marrying Muslim men. Right? And I'm going to say this for the record. Some Muslim women have gobbled this feminism so much that for her, a healthy Muslim man is the most toxic man. Does that make sense? Do you guys get that or no? They've gobbled this feminism down so much of no one tells me what to do, you admire me from afar, I can do it on my own, I'm independent, I have my own agency, nobody tells me what to do, blah, 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 blase, blase. She realizes that she cannot live with someone telling her, don't leave like that, that's not appropriate, I don't want you watching that. I don't want you leaving like that from the house. I don't want you befriending this woman, I think she's toxic, I don't want her in our house anymore, please. You have women, this independent concept, they're so overconsumed with it that they cannot, the only person they can actually live with is with a non-Muslim who's okay with her going wherever she wants, however she wants, and doing whatever she wants. And that's why some of these Muslim women end up marrying non-Muslim men, because they know the only way they're going to live with that person in harmony is by living with someone who's going to allow them to do whatever it is they want. And a religious Muslim man is not having it. And I don't subscribe to the, Muslim women are marrying non-Muslim men, because non-Muslim men are so much more caring and they're so much more loving. You're living in a perpetual state of zina. Are you okay? Your children are children of zina. You meet Allah as an adulterous woman when you marry a non-Muslim. Why aren't these conventions telling our sisters this? These national conventions, why are they not reminding our sisters this? Why aren't they telling our sisters this? And it's growing. And this is how things get out of hand, is when everybody remains quiet, no one speaks, no one wants to be controversial, and this is how stuff gets out of hand. And of course, Yusuf Susi has to come and portray himself like this crazy monster who just hates women and he doesn't love women, and it's far from that. It's far from that. I love you all for the sake of Allah. This is what happens. This is what happens. That's what happens. I want to leave with this analogy. I want to give you guys this picture. Wallahi, I love you for the sake of Allah. I genuinely love all of you for the sake of Allah, and I want nothing but the best for you. Wallahi. There's nothing in it for me. Like when I talk about sisters like this, no one is putting money in my account. It's bringing me a bad rep. It's not actually doing me any good. But I feel as though, as I said last night, I'm traversing a muddy stream, and the only way I can get to the other side is by getting a little bit dirty. I'm not crossing it because I want to get dirty. I'm not crossing it because I find pleasure in getting dirty, but I feel the only way I can get to the other side is by getting a little bit dirty. Unfortunately. I'm going to leave by this. When you're listening to a Muslim speaker, you can leave with so many criticisms. The delivery, the approach, you can use a lot of excuses, right? To refute the person or to completely silence them or dismiss any of their criticisms, valid they are or not. But when you're doing something on your own and you feel like you're one of the very few carrying it, you're going to make mistakes in the process. Okay? I'll give you an analogy. Let's assume we wanted you to carry that book right there, that case right there with all the Qur'ans in it. Let's assume it weighs about 150, 200 pounds. It's probably not a good idea for you to lift it alone, right? Something like that would probably need 2 people at least, right? Okay? Let's assume you're carrying something heavy, right? Something that's 300, 400 pounds. Let's assume you're carrying it on your own. When you're carrying it on your own, you're going to falter. Your position is not going to be good. You're going to probably slip. Your body is going to shift. You're going to have back pains. You're going to have ankle pains. You're going to sprain your neck. You're going to have a lot of complications. Why? Because you're doing something by yourself. But in reality, that one thing should be done by 3 or 4 other people. What I'm getting at is, as a da'i, as an imam, as a shaykh, as a Muslim public speaker, when you feel like you're one of the very few talking about this subject, that's how one feels. As though you're taking something on your shoulder that's made to be carried by 3 or 4 people, but you're trying to do it on your own. So I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to falter. I'm going to walk crooked. This is all going to happen. And I hope you guys get that I hope you guys get like the message or the example. What was that understood? No. This is all I'm trying to get at. So sitting from the other side and criticizing, well, why did he have to say this? And he did that. I can't believe they brought him from Minnesota to talk to us like this. And look, all that's easy. But if every public speaker was doing his or her part, and we had serious conversations like this, I wouldn't be this passionate. And guess what? I probably would not even have to have this conversation with you guys, because someone else is already doing it. A lot of other people are already doing it, right? So it's not that I find pleasure in it, but I find that it has to be brought up. Okay? Anyways.
You want to continue?
No, that's jazakumullah khair. That's huh?
That's it.
Oh, I mean, inshallah, I'm sure people have questions and.
So you want to do Q&A?
Yeah, sure. If people have questions, yeah, sure. Kid is gonna kill me. You ruined my tablet, Baba.
طيب جزاكم الله خير الجزاء وأحسن الله إليكم على حضوركم واستماعكم. We also thank فضيلة الشيخ يوسف سوسي وشكر الله له. إن شاء الله تعالى between now and صلاة العشاء, we're going to be taking some questions, inshallah ta'ala. So the floor is open for Q&A. Barakallahu feekum. Now.
Yes, the Dawah says, if you don't stop telling me or controlling me, I'm going to decide to move out of the house and live somewhere else? In that case, what advice would you give?
A very good question. My brother is asking, and by the way, this is becoming more common, where some of our sisters will look at the father and say, "Who are you to tell me what to do?" I mean, you have some nerve. You have some nerve to do that. Sometimes you wish you were just back home, weren't you? Whew. Yes. Wallahi, sometimes you wish you were back home so we could just keep it real with one another. Right? But unfortunately, khalas, أنا مكتوف في الأيدي. I can't do anything. Right? Yeah, call 911 on me. Do your thing, salam. We'll meet on Judgment Day. I mean, what audacity does it take for a daughter to look at her father in the eye, who carried her, who went, worked, and did everything for her? Now, if this doesn't apply to you, then don't worry about it. Oh, my father was never there. You're an exception. Generally speaking, fathers are there for their daughters. They're there for their kids. What's your question? The brother's asking, if my daughter says, stop controlling me, stop telling me what to do, if not, I'm going to move out. Is that your question? Well, this all depends. This all depends. Does she mean it? Is she just calling his bluff? How did you raise her? Is this something that in other words, parents sometimes, they'll spend their whole life living a certain lifestyle, and then suddenly they become religious, so now they want the whole family to kind of become religious, without, taking time, without giving time for people to change, and so on and so forth. So in that regard, akhi, wallahi, this depends. There's not a one size that fits all. It really all depends on the daughter, right? If she's going to leave the house and she's going to commit a lot more drama, then maybe to keep her there and for her to do whatever she's going to do. But you as a father, you don't give in to her, you don't smile, you don't be that good, loving, nurturing father, and as the mother, you don't do that either. Like if she has that strong head to be that rebellious and defiant, you don't sit there and honey and how are you? No, you don't do that. But she can come and spend the night there and do whatever it is she wants. Now, if she's spreading the LGBTQ stuff at home, if she's spreading kufr at home, and you have younger siblings, then your best bet is not to keep her there. Do you know why? Because she is now going to spread that nonsense to the younger ones. And you can't have it. You can't have it. Right? And this is something that I read about a long time ago, that if you have an elderly person who's spreading kufr at home, then you cannot keep having that person at home, because they're going to delude and be the cause of deviating other children who are at home. Right? So again, use your discretion.
Now, by the way, the girls are also in it too. In this, the sisters can also participate in this Q&A series. There's a microphone coming down your way, so if you have a question for the Sheikh, you guys.
Or they can
use
write it
that
down.
microphone,
They can write it
inshallah.
down too.
Anyone else? Or you guys can write it down, and whichever one you guys opt into, inshallah ta'ala. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm sorry? Politics. Akhi, wallahi, when it comes to joining politics, see, in Islam you have this concept of maslaha al-muwazana bayn al-maslaha wal-mafsada, right? You look at what benefits you can possibly, right, conceivably secure, and what mafsadas you can ward off. The general rule is al-mafsada tuqaddam ala al-maslaha, right? Dar' al-mafsada tuqaddam ala jal' al-maslaha. The general rule of thumb is that to put away and to ward off the evil is better than securing a good deed.
No.
Oh, does that make okay? So, but I'm sure here I'm not going to change anyone's mind. That's why, if you guys notice, I rarely talk about politics, because I know I'm not going to change your mind. For those of you who are really heavy and set in politics, I know I'm not going to change your mind. But one thing for us to seriously consider, before we get all uppity up and excited about a young man or a young woman being elected, let us honestly ask ourselves, do we really know what they're getting themselves into? And this is what I think a lot of people are not really they're not really seeing the severity of what's going on in the political world. They get uppity up and excited. I don't know, is it popularity or our tribe made it to, I don't know what it is. But I think before we get all uppity up and excited, we really have to ask ourselves, like, you got a young 19, 20, 22-year-old joining politics. Ma'akallah. Trust me, it's not something that I am uppity up about, because I know the details of politics, and I know what a dirty game it is, and I know the kufr that it entails. But again, I can't change someone's mind. One thing though I will say, I cannot think of something more detrimental, more dangerous to our children than us aligning and positioning ourselves with the left, especially when it comes to the gender identity LGBTQ issue. Okay? When the average young Muslim sees another Muslim in parades and taking pictures, that creates a problem within the psyche of the average young little 5, 7, 8-year-old. That's the problem. And the imams, unfortunately, because I prefer being candid. The problem also with that is that when we come on the minbar and we talk about how it's in our best interest to ally ourselves, or to have allies, right, with the left. And the LGBTQ community, and we can work, there are commonalities that we can work together on, very good. But at the same time, if you're not balancing that with the severity of that lifestyle, that becomes problematic. When all you're talking about is, and that's what our du'at have been talking about this for the past 10 years. All you hear them when they talk about the LGBTQ, they talk about like very well, all they're talking about is how it's in our best interest as Muslims in America to align ourselves with the left because of their policies. But no one is talking about how dangerous it is to adopt and live according to the lifestyle of liwat. So there's not a balance of, hey, I said this politically, but religiously, I want to remind you all that this is kufr, to believe that it's okay. It's a kabira to engage in. It's an egregious sin. Ain't nobody talking about that. This is not until Muhammad Hijab from the UK pointed out certain organizations, and all of a sudden, a week or two later, everybody's talking about the LGBTQ. Where are you guys at 10 years ago? Where's everybody at 10 years ago? This is bad. And that's why you get Muslims. Sheikh, what does Islam say about the LGBTQ? Sheikh, I'm gay. Sheikh, I'm lesbian. I'm not trying to be funny. This is what you, why? Because of the mixed signals that the young Muslim is seeing out there. I'm telling you, we have no idea what I don't want to sound pessimistic. I don't want to sound negative, but these are just the rotten fruits that we're dealing with. It really is. And sometimes to opt out is an option. Sometimes to opt out is an option. Sometimes to say, I want to have nothing to do with this. Why don't we feel like, hey, you know what? I don't have nothing to do with this, man. Sit down. That's an option. Let's go on. Alhamdulillah or haha, or both?
Yeah, both. The question is, this feminism, is it going to lead to lesbian because she hates?
Oh, without a doubt.
So the majority of this.
Oh, for sure.
That's one thing they think it one is right, but it's all behind this is hate man and that.
Here, let me see. The brother asked a very good question, right? Now I sound like Zakir Naik, right? The brother asked a very good question, right? May Allah reward him. I'm not making fun of him. Wallah, you know, I love him for the sake of Allah, but it's just funny because everybody who asks him a question, he says, brother asked a very good question, you know, may Allah reward him and keep him steadfast on the path. And I love him for the sake of Allah. So that wasn't the point. The brother's asking, can feminism lead to lesbianism? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's either going to, yes, there's a chance that you stay a Muslim. The chances are this. Either you're going to probably remain single because of your strong resentment and hatred for men. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that you hate men so much that you become a lesbian. And I've seen this with my own eyes, where some women just did not have a good experience in terms of their father, in terms of their mother, in terms of their ex. So they decide to become lesbians, right? And then they open up their own masjid, right? They open up their own masjid, right? Isn't that funny? Yeah. So it leads to lesbianism, or it can lead to apostasy, and yes, it can lead to it can also lead to suicide, as I mentioned earlier. So yes, and that's why even today, to just praise men for all the contributions that they bring to the table in society. For some women, that's enabling abuse. This is just how they are, some of them. To just mention, the mere mention of men's contributions in society, what they do in the sewers, how they're laying bricks, listen, let me tell you something. You got these mini men. I see them on the job sites, even when it's 20 below. The house is built by men from the very bottom until the very top. Everything is done by men. The trusses, the roofing, the everything, right? And this is of kufran, by extension, this is a form of kufran al-ashir. You know the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, when he says that the majority of the dwellers of hell are women, do you know why? يكثرن اللعن ويكفرن العشير. يحسن إليها الدهر كله ثم إذا أساء قالت. What's going on? Is there time up or what?
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Have fun, you're good.
Right? And this is an extension for women who have a problem when they're confronted with the many contributions of men. They have a problem. Some women, the only thing they want to see you post is how men are abusive, how they're violent, and how they're rapists. Anything other than that, they cannot tolerate. This is just how bad this nonsense crap is. This is how bad it is. All some women want to share on their timeline is how someone abused someone, how another man abused a woman, how another man did this. That's all they post. And then they wonder why they're single and why they will remain single. You're living in a bubble. Every time the sun shines, you close the blinds. When it's cloudy out, you open up the blinds and you say, why is it never shining? When the sun rises the following day, you close the blinds and you're always telling yourself, it's dark, it's dark. That's what's happening. So it's not this, you know what's funny to me? Honestly, is when some brothers say, Sheikh, Islam is just about, feminism is just about equal rights. I'm like, what rock have you been living under? What rock have you been living under? Sheikh, take it easy. Islam is, feminism is just about equal. It ain't about equal rights. Hey, ya hasra, this was like 30, 40 years ago, it was about equal rights. Now, it's more than that. I'll never forget, I was a sheikh, I forget his name, Abdullah al-Masiri. He was a giant intellectual in Egypt. He said that, and I'll never forget this. You know how sometimes you watch hours of content and there's just one thing that resonates with you? This is the one thing that resonates with me. He said, the definition of feminism is not equal rights with men. And I was really intrigued. I wanted to kind of get what his definition for feminism is. He says, النسوية هي التمركز حول الأنثى. هي صدق والله. Wallahi, that is so true. He said, النسوية هي التمركز حول الأنثى. Feminism, he said, it's not about equal rights or seeking equal rights with men. He said, feminism is the centrality around the rights of women. It's about the benefit of the woman. In other words, the woman is central, and feminism is all about her. It's not about living amicably with other people. It's about her. And this is why we get what we get today. So I'm not going to sit here in front and say, oh, it's about equal rights. No, no, it ain't about that. No.
Jazakallah khair. Now we're gonna shift gears to the sisters. Is there any questions coming from the sister side?
No, I'm fine. I welcome this. I think questions are healthy, right? And I mean, like maybe the sisters would prefer to write it down.
Right. If you guys can opt in to write up questions, you guys are also welcome.
Oh, okay, sounds good. All right. Okay.
There is a question that has been brought up to me, and the question says, can Muslim women have roles or jobs that require leading or commanding?
Require what? I'm sorry?
Can Muslim women have roles or jobs that require leading or commanding?
Require dating?
Leading.
Leading. Oh,
Nah.
oh, leading.
Okay, that's a good question. Can women have jobs that require leading or commanding? Yes. For example, in Islam, a woman can be, let me kind of clarify. A woman in Islam, it is permissible for her, for her to work. In Islam, it's permissible. In terms of just for a woman to work, it's permissible. What all that is dependent on, it's contingent on what environment she's in. how she's carrying herself at her job. Is she leaving the house being dazzled, or is she leaving in her proper hijab the way Allah wants her to be? So, is it permissible for a woman, for example, to be the principal of a school? Yes, it's permissible. There's nothing wrong with that, right? However, so to be in that position, yes, provided also that you with your husband, that there's mutual understanding between you and your husband, and that you psychologically, mentally know that anything outside of your family is secondary, that your husband and your children are first. That's important. Not your career is prioritized over your own children, your own family, and your own house. So long as these things are met, and your husband is okay with you working, because yes, you have to get permission from your husband to work. Yes, that's not controversial. And that's why brothers, by the way, it's not fair. If a sister wants to work for the rest of her life and she doesn't want to get married, kudos to her. I don't condone it. But Islamically speaking, can she do that? Yes. Can she live, never have kids, never get married and never have any kids, and Islamically speaking, so long as she remains chaste and she remains pure, she can do that. So brothers, when you get married to a sister and she's adamant about working, maybe she's not the right woman for you. Do not get married to her and then think because you have so much gain that you're going to come a year later and say, okay, khalas, you know what? I'm not going to allow you to work. If she's adamant about working, you don't want her to work, right? Then don't get married to her. That's why I think these things have to be addressed and talked about before marriage. Especially these things. These are very important things, right? You want to continue working? No. You want to work from home? And so on and so forth, right? But the gist of the thing is that if a woman wants to work, it's appropriate and the husband is okay with that. There's a mutual agreement between the husband and the wife. I don't see any issue with that. Provided also that, here, let me just say this. When a woman gets a job and she's working, it becomes problematic if slowly but surely she starts looking down on her husband. That's going to be a problem. If your job is going to cause you to be uppity up and to trample all over your husband, I don't think that job is going to be a good idea for you. But if you have the maturity, the discipline, and you're well-grounded where you can work, but understand that you do not become the leader of the house, continue working as long as your husband is okay with it. But if it's going to get to your head and you think like you guys are, no, there's a man, there's a captain of the ship, and then there's everybody else. This is Islam. Don't be mad at me. This is just basic Islam. I think that's important. Is that another thing too? And I wrote about this about 2 months ago. I said women have to, working women who have careers, they have to differentiate between being at work and being at home. Being at work, your boss, wherever, they're asking of you to be strong, to be determined, to be firm. Guess what? That's not gonna work when you come home. So you have to juggle between being this career woman at work, being firm, strong, and telling people what to do and exercising your authority. You cannot come with that same mentality at home and expect to live a happy, loving life. Because the one thing men will not, men, generally speaking, I think any man, right, is not going to tolerate being disrespected in his own home. I'm not talking about men who don't work, bums collecting, they're not doing jobs, bumming around from work. I'm talking about men who know that they're responsible and they're keeping a job and they're doing their part. Don't talk about my husband, he just collects, EBT from the government. I don't think he qualifies to be a man, honestly, if he doesn't have a legitimate reason. Okay? So what I'm saying is, it's going to be difficult for you because you have to turn that switch off when you leave from work. And now you're going to come home and you have to now get into your feminine stage, right? Now you have to be that loving, giggly wife. Assalamu alaikum, how was your day? I miss you. You have to, some women might not be able to turn that switch on and turn it off. That might cause problems in your marriage, right? So that's why you have to be there. And look, wallahi, I swear I can sit here from now until 5 o'clock in the morning. We can talk about all of this, but it's just one thing brings up another thing. So I hope that helps. Right?
All right. I think for the sake of time, we're just gonna take one last question.
I'm okay. Please, if they have questions, let them ask. Please. I mean, look, Isha, we can delay Isha.
All right,
Barakallahu
that's
fiik. I'm
fine.
okay.
Okay, for the sake of time, we're just gonna take one more last question, inshallah ta'ala. So whoever has a question can raise their hand up or write it.
You sure the sisters don't have a question? I mean, this is more pertaining to them more than anything.
Nah.
I can go check.
Yeah.
Sisters, wallahi, as aggressive as I come across, wallahi, I welcome your questions. There's no animosity between us, right? So please, if you have questions, your question might be the open gateway for someone else who's maybe embarrassed or afraid to ask that question. So please, if you have a question, please, feel free to ask. Just quickly before someone else, yes, now.
No.
No? Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, brother's asking a question.
Nah.
So say they raise their kids here, they take them to school, and obviously now in school, there's kids and stuff that you don't want
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
you don't want them learning that. What's the solution for the parents to make it
Can we tackle that tomorrow? Because tomorrow we're going to talk about raising.
Okay, the brother is asking a question about how parents should deal with their kids in terms of being in the public school and the LGBTQ conundrum, and I'm just telling him that inshallah ta'ala we will touch on that tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be raising kids, how to raise boys, how to raise girls, and how there's a world of difference between raising the two. There's overlap, but again, there are certain things that are geared towards women, and there are certain things that are geared towards brothers. If anybody wants to ask me a personal question, you can find me on Facebook. As long as you're respectful, I have no problem. I will take your question. Right? You can email me, or you can find me on Facebook and Twitter and ask me whatever it is you want, and I will be happy to answer your question, comments, or concerns. Jazakumullah.
Okay. Sorry.
Can we sit down for a second, please? Sit down for a second. Sit down, guys, sit down for a second. For a second, sit down. Kids, set up. Set up. Guys, can we just get 2 minutes, 3 minutes, please? Sit down. We have something to share, inshallah.